Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie. This is the Footprint Kingfoam Orthotic Pro, and I'm going to give you a real-world test from an average snowboarder's perspective. And to give you a short summary, this is a ultra shock absorbent, very soft, cushy, but yet supportive insole. It doesn't feel like it detracts from the response either. And if you want to add to the midsole of your boot, as opposed to creating a layer and get more shock absorption while still getting great arch support, check out the Footprint Kingfoam Orthotic Pro. It's an insole I've been using a lot lately, and I really love it. They've come a long way from the old Kingfoam Orthotic Elite that used to be my daily driver. That seems to have evolved into the Kingfoam Orthotic, and this is still an amazing insole. They all have what's called infinity foam inside them that is sticky but very effective in terms of shock absorption. And these insoles offer shock absorption on a level that no other brand does. The only one that comes close is Remind, but they're still a level behind. And I'm not saying from a lab test perspective, from just an on-snow feel, these just feel a little less shock absorbent. But if you're considering something like Superfeet or Sole, you don't want to consider these. These are not for snowboarders. These are. And that's what I'll be primarily talking about. And this is what I often recommend to riders here. The only other option that I think is just as good as these is the Fluid X. They might even be a step above in terms of instant customization and shock absorption. But they're on the same level as the Game Changer and Game Changer Pro. When I test insoles, I don't just throw them in a boot, ride them. I do that, but then I do a comparison where I go out and take my daily drivers, the Nitro Teams, take a lap with the factory insole in there. In the past, I've done it with Burton and their factory insole and other boots as well. Then I put a new insole, take the same lap, come back, grab another insole, and so on and so forth. So I get a really good idea of how these all sit on the spectrum. And in this particular test, I compared them against the Game Changer Mids, the Game Changer High, the Fluid X, the Remind DCP Cush, but I have in the past compared them against the Remedy, the Medic, as well as Sole and Superfeet. This is an honest, objective review from an average rider's perspective. FP Insoles has no say in what I say, but I do have a sponsor, and that's Flower Board Shop. They've been around forever, selling to snowboarders longer than most resorts have been allowing snowboarders. So if you want to support honest, objective content and a great shop with a large online presence, competitive pricing, fast shipping, excellent customer support, click through our links to Flower Board Shop and buy something. It would be greatly appreciated. Now let's talk sizing here. These are highs. That means 10 millimeters in the heel, 5 millimeters near the front area. And these fit my size 9 true length and true width very well. I think Footprint Insole Technology insoles fit wider feet better than Remind. Even after a trim, I always have a little more space on the footprints versus the Reminds. I do wish the older models had this extension for really wide feet. So people wider than me, I'm just an E. That means I'm the beginning of wide. But there are people who are double E and triple E that could really use this extension. I wish you'd bring it back, Footprint. I'm also on the medium side of my instep, and I'm almost always comfortable with the highs in my boots that I fit true to my size and width. Now, when it comes to arch support, these do not have any heat moldability. All you do is cut them down, put them in your boots, put some pressure on them, and the heat of your feet just molds this down to your arch. And just to give you an idea, this is my arch after a heat molding. I have a medium arch that doesn't go up too high on the sides. This is a custom orthotic. They took a mold of my foot and then made an insole specifically to that mold. And this custom orthotic shows that I don't have a very high arch on the sides. So insoles like these that naturally mold to my arch fit really well. And these Kingfoams, along with the Kingfoam Pros, mold really well to my arch. They do a much better job than the Remind Remedy that really goes high on the sides here. which is good for a lot of feet, but not mine, and they might not be for yours. The Cush have a little more mellow side arch that I really appreciate, and these mold somewhat well to my feet, and those are more direct competitors to these Kingfoam Orthotic Pros, but these do a better job molding. The best though is this new Fluid X. This is the Fluid X3 version, but they have more fluid than the older Fluid X that I tried, and a thicker fluid. It does a much better job conforming to your arch. The minute I step on this, I feel the fluid move to fill in my arch, and it stays there. It's very good, and it has more shock absorption. They have a great heel cup too to give you great support. And when it comes to shock absorption, nothing beats this infinity foam right here in the metatarsal, and inside under this material in the heel, it gives you such good shock absorption. And going with any high from Footprint insole technology, I feel like I'm doubling the already very shock absorbent midsole from my Nitro teams. And this will drastically help you if you have a boot that doesn't have very good shock absorption. It's gonna make your day a lot better. And nobody comes close to Footprint in terms of shock absorption. I'm not talking about bowling ball tests. I'm talking about real world snowboarding, flat landings, uneven snow, hard micro bumpy snow. These just smooth everything out, put a little extra butter on your popcorn, and allow you to ride longer. I can't tell you what it's like off a 60-foot kicker. You can ask a pro that and then decide if you want to send yourself off that kicker and maybe go to the hospital after. But I can tell you from an average rider's perspective, just riding terrain, little side hits, etc., I just feel so much better in Footprint insole technology, and they're light years ahead of Superfeet and Sole and so many other aftermarket insoles in the same price point or even higher. Like for example, these Superfeet, which I think are 60 bucks, have almost no foam in them, and it's a cheap foam. I think it's worse than the factory foam I got in my Nitro Team boots. Then on top of that, they put a carbon layer under that just takes away from all the shock absorption that they create in the heel, and it adds a layer between your midsole of your boot and your foot. The Remind Cush does a much better job than these insoles, Sole and Superfeet. Sole has a dense plastic instead of carbon fiber, which is better than carbon fiber, but still, you really feel that layer. Then this Cush feels a lot less than all the other Reminds out there. And it's pretty shock absorbent, but I still feel a little bit of that layer from this more dense blue material. And then more so with the Medic, and especially more so with the Remedy that is heat moldable and has a more dense material, it seems like. Either that or there's inconsistency in production. If you want shock absorption like I do, then I highly recommend these. And overall, the Footprint Kingfoam Orthotic Pro are great insoles. I highly recommend them. I would go with the new Fluid X, maybe over these, but it's really close and you can't go wrong. I still think the Kingfoam, even though it doesn't have a more supportive heel cup, still gives you exceptional shock absorption. They're right on par with the Game Changers and actually feel more shock absorbent just because they're not as stiff in the arch area. The Game Changers Pro are even a little stiffer because they have that quantum heel plastic in here. It's not super stiff though, but it does add to the stiffness in the arch, but they're still just shock absorbent in the heel and the metatarsal area as the Kingfoams. So you really can't go wrong if you want support, customization, and shock absorption in a wide variety of thickness and sizing. So there you have it. Excellent insole, one of my favorites.